When you're working within your document and you need to get from one point to another, like if I want to type in some text at the 1-inch marker, which by the way, if you can't see your horizontal or vertical ruler, make sure that up here on the View tab, you're in the Print Layout view, and that's highlighted, and then also in the Show group, you have the ruler checked. Let's go back to the Home tab. In any case, if you want to be able to add some text at the 1-inch marker, instead of hitting the spacebar several times, which by the way, let's come up here on the Home tab in the Paragraph group and click on the Show Codes, that you can see when I hit the spacebar, the code for the space is the dot, so you can see if you deleted all the spaces by hitting the backspace key, and the code for hitting the tab key when you hit it is going to be the arrow, so you know that if it's a tab that you used within the document or a bunch of spaces. Now, instead of hitting the spacebar several times to get to the 1-inch marker, or hitting, let me hit the backspace, the tab key twice, because by default it goes over a 1/2 inch, instead you can use what are called tab stops. A tab stop can be placed up here on the horizontal ruler, like at the 1-inch marker, that when I hit the tab key, it's going to bypass the default a 1/2 inch and go right to the stop, wherever that tab stop is. So in this exercise, I want to go ahead and create 3 columns. The name of the columns are going to be books, and somewhere in the middle I'll have the author, and then at the end cost. And then underneath the labels here I'll have the name of the books that I like reading, and then the authors of those books, and then the actual cost. So first of all, let's go ahead and type in books, and then let's say that for the author we want them over in the middle to have a column here, and it's at the 3-inch. When I hit the tab key, you can see that it only goes over at those 1/2 inch markers here from, well, see, that's right at the 1/2 inch, so the tab arrow is just a little bit before it goes over to finish at the 1/2 inch mark. I'd have to hit the tab key several times to get to the 3-inch mark, and I don't want to do that. But instead, let me hit the backspace and hit the tab key once. I want it that when I hit the tab key to jump all the way over to the 3-inch marker. To do that, I need to come over here to the left-hand side of the horizontal ruler, and there's my tab stops. And when I say tab stops, there's more than just one, but we'll go over that in just a minute. The default stop is called the left tab. It's called that because not only does it stop the tab, that when you hit the tab key at whatever point you add the stop, but it also does a left alignment. So it'll align the text that you type at that stop to the left-hand side. So you can see there it is again, hover over it, left tab stop. Then just come over here up on the horizontal ruler and move your mouse right at the 3-inch mark and click, and it adds the stop. Not only that, but it takes the tab that we hit initially and it says, hey, you're no longer bound by these default rules at every 1/2 inch here, but you go right over to the actual stop here that you can see up there, that little tick mark, that little L-like shape here. That does 2 things. Again, it stops you at that stop, and then when you start typing like author, it does a left align. So it's keeping everything aligned to the left of that left tab stop. And then to get to the far end here, but when I get to the end here, if I start typing, it's going to do a text wrap and go to the next line. When I get to the end, I want it to stop, but when I type, I don't want it to align it to the left because, again, it's going to wrap. I want it to align to the right, so everything that I type at that tab stop gets pushed back this way and has the last letter within that word just aligned up to the very edge, wherever edge I want to put it. I can do the tab stop at the 6-inch marker, or that's about 6.5. So I can't use the left stop here, and you can see it says left tab. To get to the right tab stop, go ahead and click on it to toggle through. Now this one, when you hover back over it, is the center tab. So it'll stop any tab wherever you put that marker on the horizontal ruler, but when you start typing, it'll center align it. So for example, I'm looking at author here, and you can see that there's the tab stop, and it aligns everything to the left of that tab stop. If I go ahead and click and drag that little tick mark off, it's no longer available, so it goes back to the default at every 1/2 inch. But if I go ahead with that selected, or that being displayed the center tab, and I click back on the 3, notice how it stops it there, but after it stops it, it aligns it on the center of that stop, hence the center tab stop. So let's go ahead and go over, hit the tab key. You don't have to hit the tab key right yet. In fact, let me hit the backspace. And let's find our right align stop. So go ahead and click on it again, and move off, move back on it, and see if that's it. Hey, it's the right tab. So let's come over here, and then to click right on it, I can't do it because that right indent is right on the border between on what's available within the document before it hits the margin. So what I like to do is I like to click and not let go of the mouse button and drag drag it right on top of it so I can get right to the very edge before it hits the margin. So when I hit the Tab key, it jumps right over to it. Now because it's right aligned, anything that I type is going to be pushed to the left and keep it aligned to the right with that stop. So when I type in cost, hey, isn't that fun? Now that I've created my labels for the columns here, if I hit enter on the keyboard, do the stops disappear? No, they're still there, which is nice because then when I actually type in the name of a book, and then hit the Tab key, I don't have to reset those stops. Now, if you need to adjust the tab stops, be careful how you adjust it. Like, for example, wherever my cursor's at, it's on this line. If I decide to move the center tab stop over for this column here, because the cursor's on the line, if I go ahead and click on that little center tab and drag it over to the right, notice how it just moves Terry Brooks here and not the entire column. To be able to do that, let me go ahead and hit undo. I need to click and drag and select all of the lines that I want to have adjusted when it comes to this tab stop. And so if I go ahead and click and drag that over, it moves it over, let go, cool. Also, if you want to get in more of an incremental movement than what you see here when you click and drag, in other words, you want to get numerical, if you click on the tab stop and hold down the Alt key and then drag, there you can get a little bit more detail about the left-hand side where you got the 1-inch margin, then you have 3.22 inches if you want 3 1/4 inch. Oh, that's just beautiful and perfect on both sides. Then go ahead and let go of the mouse and you get the exact center for the document at that exact point right there. Otherwise, I'm not too picky. Now, if for some reason you do make a mistake, like I'm in this line right here and I click and drag that center stop off, and it messes things up because now it says the next tab stop that we see is way over to the far right, so it jumps from Elstones of Shannara for the author and puts him over here, and then it wraps it Brooks down below, and then it's got, well, it's just a mess because the next tab stop for the next line jumps all the way over to the right. Instead of hitting the undo button because it's no longer available, then just make sure that your cursor is on the line that you want to add that tab stop, and then make sure you select the appropriate tab stop, which was the center tab stop. So you have to toggle through the many tabs until you find it. Then to verify that that is the center tab stop, hover back over it and it says center tab, and then go ahead and click on it. And then if you want to use the Alt key held down and to move it over to get it exactly right, and let's say that we don't because I want to bring up a good point. It's not at the left-hand side 3.25, but it's 3.14, and I let go. And something doesn't look quite right, but I want them all aligned. Whatever you do, I wouldn't select all of them and try to align it that way because notice up here in the horizontal ruler, do you see how the tab stop is faded? It's not in bold. It's that way because you've got one of the stops in one of the lines, or a lot of the lines, that is off and it's not at the same point. So it's telling you that it's not bold because something's off. But then when you have everything aligned just right, it'll be bold. So let's go back to the one. And the best way to probably figure this out is to actually use the up and down arrow keys. And as I arrow from this line down to this one, notice how this one jumps around. So I know these two are off, but of the other two, are they like this one or that one? Well, just go ahead and click in those lines or those paragraphs and know that these three are the same, but this one's off. So to be able to get that one back, again, we're trying to figure out where these are at, and as we held down the Alt key, it was 3 1/4 on either side, so we can try to do that again. Hold down the Alt key and click on that tick mark, and if I hold down the Alt key before I click on it, you get the option with the Alt key to hit the keys on the keyboard to be able to 1 to save, 2 to undo, 3 to redo. I'm not going to use the Alt key in that manner, but the Alt key and clicking on the center tab stop and going over until I hit 3.25 and let go. Then if I click and drag and select everything here, it's no longer faded those tick marks because everything's lined up just perfectly.